生きてこられた理由を
Welcome back to another My Hero Academia anime vs manga video breaking down season 7 episode 7 titled Inflation, sharing the same title as chapter 347, referencing Shigaraki's increase of limbs being created by his body due to having conquered the quirk singularity theory. Now the episode begins with a flashback to a few days ago of All Might discussing the plan to divide and conquer the villains. For the anime, All Might further explains the plan, this time including Aoyama's and Shinso's role in tricking All for One, Troy being used to split up the villains, Monoma using Kurogiri's quirk to teleport the villains and heroes to the 5 different locations. Shigaraki is set to be transported to Yue's coffin in the sky and have Monoma copy Aizawa's quirk to erase Shigaraki's. The team heading to fight Shigaraki will center around Deku and include high-ranking heroes like Best Jeanist, Edshot, and Mirko. All for One will be teleported to Gunga Villa, and the team heading to fight him are formed around Endeavor and Hawks. Dabi will be teleported to Kamino Ward Ground Zero. The team being sent will center around their ability to deal with fire and will comprise of Todoroki, Endeavor's sidekicks, and Ida. Toga will be sent to Okutu Island in order to isolate her due to her being hard to predict on what she'll do. The team heading there are formed around Gang Orca, with Ochako and Froppy joining them as they have the most experience fighting against Toga. The remaining villains are sent to Dagobah National Stadium, and for you Star Wars fans, this is meant to be a reference to Dagobah, the swamp-covered planet Yoda exiled himself to for the rest of his life, seen in Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. The heroes stationed at Dagobah Stadium are Ojiro, Sero, and Sugarman. The villains that didn't get transported, some heroes stayed behind to fight them, including Fat Gum and Aoyama. I honestly really like that the anime here did show that Kurogiri being at the hospital in Gigatomakia at Jakku, aka another Star Wars reference to a planet featured in The Force Awakens, were likely targets for the villains to come and set free, thus adding 8 locations in total to where the heroes and villains will be fighting at. Overall, this anime-only explanation really made a lot of things clear for viewers on what's going on and who is where in the war, and I can really appreciate this, as I will say it can be a little too much to know where everyone is at and who is fighting who. After the opening, Shigaraki continues to attack the rest of the heroes with the growth of fingers he used to hit Mirko in the last episode. The heroes come to the conclusion that this couldn't be a quirk as Monoma hadn't let his eyes off of Shigaraki. Shigaraki explains that this is just a simple growth of his body on its own. Similar to the way his hair and nails grow longer, the body must adapt to ever-evolving quirks, and this new form he's acquired is the next step for superpowered society in line with the singularity proposed by Garaki. But they could never comprehend this theory as they swept the theory under the rug a long time ago. As Shigaraki explains his singularity form, the anime adds in shots of Mirko, Best Jeanist, and Bakugo making it out of Shigaraki's fingers. Mirko, receiving new spare limbs, goes at it with Bakugo, but Best Jeanist keeps them focused on the villain ahead. Deku makes contact with Aizawa, and the anime does slightly change some things up here, as when Deku is telling Aizawa that he's on Okutu Island because of Toga grabbing him through the portal, the anime actually adds interference and Aizawa can only make out a few words as to what Deku is trying to tell him, which does make a lot of sense. Deku is extremely far away from where Yue's coffin in the sky is at, and in the manga it kind of feels like they have these super earpieces that can communicate clearly no matter the distance. Deku requests a warp, and Aizawa realizes that they can't risk warping as Monoma can only activate one copied quirk at a time, and switching from Erasure to Warp Gate to retrieve Deku would take about 10 seconds. Best Jeanist looks at Aizawa holding up one finger, signaling to him that if all of Shigaraki's infinitely multiplying hands are capable of activating decay, then the moment Erasure is undone, they will all die. Best Jeanist holding up his fingers in this moment is a reference to Avengers Endgame and Doctor Strange signaling to Iron Man of the one possible future chapter where they beat Thanos. The panel of Monoma looking stressed doesn't get adapted when Aizawa tells Deku that he has to make it a UA on his own. When all of the heroes at UA line up in a cool action pose, the anime actually takes away the detail of Mirko being on top of Best Jeanist's fibers, which is a little disappointing because it was so cool to see her do that pose on top of the fibers in the manga. Switching over to Okutu Island, we get an added shot of the island, and the anime even extends the beginning of the battle as we see Gang Orca staring down the High-End Nomu as it prepares to launch an attack at the heroes. The villains get an added shot attacking the heroes as well, and Moonfish gets an added close-up after taking out a bunch of heroes. He also has a brand new costume. The High-End even gets another shot attacking again before switching over to Froppy and the others. Here we see that Ochako and Deku get separated from Froppy after the Nomu's last attack, and Ochako gets a little added scene of her floating a villain away before talking to Deku about what Aizawa said to him. Yeah, that villain never comes back, and she never releases zero gravity either, so that person is probably floating in space by now, and Ochako legit inadvertently killed a person. I mean, I guess it's war, but this scene does have some wild implications on what happened. Moving on, Toga attacks Deku, and he realizes that Danger Sense doesn't recognize the threat she poses as actual danger, and that's because Toga feels genuine affection when she hurts people she loves, as she asks Deku to be her boyfriend. After this, we get a few scenes of the fight on the island continuing on between the heroes and villains. Deku is just absolutely flabbergasted at the fact that Toga confessed her love to him, as despite everything he's gone through in the series, he was still very inexperienced when it came to something like love. Another wave of spikes by the Nomu comes crashing down onto the battlefield, and Toga asks Deku the same question she asked Ochako back during the Paranormal Liberation War arc on what does he want to do to her. The waves and chaos hides Toga, and she's able to mask her presence from Deku. Here the anime adds a shot of everyone fighting each other, as well as a scene of Toga silently running on the water, masking her presence from Deku. He tells her that he understands the fulfillment of wanting to be like someone, as he always wanted to be strong like All Might, but he can't imagine wanting to share the same heart and mind as All Might. Plus, he would never want to hurt someone he loves. Unsatisfied with his answer, she says that he is just like Ochako and her parents, referring to them rejecting her for who she was. The anime here also doesn't adapt the panel of some heroes and villains fighting. Toga attacks Deku, and Ochako tackles Toga, telling her that she's been thinking about her since that day. Toga says if the world rejected her, then she will reject the world, as her fangs come in from behind, taking Ochako's attention away from Toga. This distraction allows Toga to stab Ochako in the shoulder, and before Toga can drop the bomb on Deku that Ochako and her both fell in love with him, Froppy and Deku kick and pull Toga away from Ochako. As Froppy tells Deku to leave, the anime doesn't adapt the panel of more spikes crashing into the ground. Ochako looks at Deku and tells him to get Shigaraki. The detail of Nana Shimura and the third user of One For All showing up as Deku is talking about using their quirks are both removed. Deku, feeling like he's moving too slow, thinks about using the second's quirk. The second tells Deku to relax and that his quirk is meant to be used as a last resort. As the second explains to Deku that as One For All grew in strength, so did all of their meta abilities, and as a result, his evolved into a particularly unique power, and it's not something that can be used the same way it was used in the past. Back to Ochako, the anime once again doesn't adapt the spikes coming down onto the battlefield, full of heroes and villains. Froppy thinks to herself about how she couldn't stand the thought of Ochako's secret of liking Deku being exposed. We see that Toga is ready to be who she wants to be in her life and touches her pouch filled with vials of blood, one of them being twices. Both Ochako and Toga get ready to fight each other. Switching over to Ground Zero in Kamino as we get an added shot of a bunch of fallen heroes. Dabi hangs onto All Might's statue as he thinks back to the incident in Hosu that spurred him to take action against Endeavor. The panel of Iida's engines doesn't get adapted when he states that the fire would ruin them if he were to get closer to the flames. Dabi takes flight as he admits he's bummed out at the fact that Endeavor won't pay him any attention once again, only sending Shoto and his sidekicks to stop him. Kido, thinking about his 10 years working under Endeavor, the anime adds a shot of the backs of Endeavor and his sidekicks. As Burnin shows her support to Endeavor and Shoto, the anime doesn't adapt the panel of Shoto staring at his brother during Burnin's support. Shoto tells Dabi that he's here to stop him and he didn't come on anyone's orders. Dabi calls Shoto the perfect little pawn, and Shoto responds by saying if he ignored Dabi and kept trying to be a hero anyways, then him being a pawn would be true. Dabi actually agrees with Shoto and says in the end this war is about the people involved and not a bunch of soldiers acting on someone's orders. The war is the result of each person's feelings getting let out. Some want to change the world they live in, some want to change the world around them, or destroy the warped imbalances built up over time that we all just came to accept. Superhuman society has reached its limit and they embody it all. Shoto asks Dabi why he never came back home. As Toya is about to tell Shoto how he became Dabi, the anime doesn't adapt the panel showing Dabi's flesh being burnt in the flames. The episode ends with Dabi's skin burning off of his face as he begins to tell Shoto the truth. Now, this episode adapted a total of 3 chapters, them being chapter 347, 348, and 349. This episode really hit it out of the park with the animation, emotion, and suspense. I legit can't wait for the next episode because the Todoroki family drama is some of the best in the series. Let me know your thoughts on the episode. Did they cook with the changes? Let me know everything in the comment section below. With that said, if you enjoyed the video, then be sure to Detroit smash that like button, and if you are new to the Kitoroki channel, then be sure to subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on so you don't miss any My Hero Academia Season 7 breakdowns. With that said, I'll see you all in the next one.